Good evening. Thank you all for joining us tonight on World Awakening. Last Friday, I'm supposed to do this show, and I had a spell of incredible fatigue, and I didn't think that I could give you what you deserved of myself. And Jeff is going to join us. Jeff Turner, my partner on Soul School, will be joining us shortly. But I want to take these few moments to thank everyone for your love, your support, your prayers, your concern, your beautiful cards, your beautiful gifts. I mean, the things that are flowing to me touch my heart in a way that I can really barely describe. It's not something that lends itself to words. It's really more a feeling. I'm doing really well and fighting the good fight, as they say. Not in any, there's no hubris. There's no presumption that I will necessarily get to the other side of this, but I know what I'm putting out in mind and in heart and in spirit, and relying on some universal health care as well as my doctors here on earth. And I thank you all for extending yourselves in so many different ways, whether it's just a quick text message from a friend. I'm thinking of you. You just popped in my head. I stopped everything. I'm saying a prayer. I spent time with you in meditation this morning. I'm sending Reiki. Something's telling me that your energy is waning, that kind of thing. And so we're going to address tonight on World Awakening something that I think is very important, certainly is important to me. And Jeff and I will talk about it, but I'll read, in case you didn't have a chance to read the description of the show tonight. I'll read it to you now. The title of our show tonight is The Healing Power of Friendship. And human beings thrive on social interaction, and we rely on each other to process a life we share. Our closest friendships lift us up during our darkest moments. If we are deprived of the intimate, trustworthy relationships that nurture us, the loneliness and isolation can become debilitating to sensitive souls who need true companionship to understand. Join me and my dear old friend, Jeff, tonight for our show. Jeff had to run get his daughter, and those of you that are parents totally get that. She's just down the road. He'll be with us in a few minutes. But in the interim, there's been a lot of things that we've had to look at in the last 4 years, particularly. And that was one of the things was what I still refer to as the real beginning of the paradigm shift in 2020, which was the emergence of COVID, and how it affected us globally. Totally, completely leveled the playing field. Nobody had any immunity built up against it, so we were all equally susceptible to it, and we all had to confront our mortality simultaneously. The fear factor literally changed the vibration on the planet. There are people that measure these things, and the planet just, for about a year went kind of crazy. And that was to be expected, considering how very serious and how many millions of lives were lost and are still being lost to this horrible, virus. But it wasn't the only thing. We're dealing with a world that is literally upside down and inside out, and not just, on between our shores, but all over the planet. There is great upheaval and incredible loss of innocent life. And many times, as I was just discussing with Jeff during Soul School, um, you have to be careful what you put out in mind. Remember, I said thoughts are things, thoughts are things. Well, it was time for me to learn my own lesson in Soul School. And that was that I reminded Jeff how many times in my despair about what was happening around the world to civilization, so, quote unquote, that I kept saying, I don't belong here. I don't belong here. I don't belong here. Well, the universe was listening and delivered me something that is literally life threatening. And so now I'm saying, I changed my mind. I changed my mind. I changed my mind. I want to be here, no matter how painful. I have come to realizations in the last few months that have been life altering for me, including the realization that love and pain walk hand in hand through this thing called life. And one cannot be detached from the other. Where there is love, there will be pain. Um, and whether it's the loss of a loved one, which we've just been through with my mother, our mother passing away, to being confronted again within 4 years with my own mortality. And, no mask is going to fix this, and no hiding out at home is going to fix this. There's got to be an entirely different plan of attack, which is in place. And so there is a war raging within me. And when I seek solace, and when I seek that sense of peace that I must work to attain and to retain, so to keep my vibration high, so to defeat this intruder from within and expel it from my classroom here in Soul School, I can't let negative energy and negative circumstances invade. I have to be very mindful of what I remain open to. And so I went from about 6 months ago being so depressed that I didn't care if I lived or died as mom was slipping away and how painful that was, to being very much engaged and very much feeling like this is exactly where I belong at this time. And that was huge. That was a quantum leap in consciousness for me. And what I have found that I often just took for granted, not in a, it was just a given that I had wonderful friendships in my life, that I availed myself of literally day to day. My people that circled the wagons immediately when I got my diagnosis, those people. And then I realized that when I came out publicly with what I was confronting here, that tribe grew. Like, I am shocked by how many kind, generous, loving souls really give a damn about me. I am so humble and so grateful, and I don't approach any of this with hubris at all, because we don't know, and that's part of the package. Is we don't know. when it's over. Um, so putting myself in that headspace and dealing with duality, dealing with the temporal nature of life, dealing with how temporary our vessels are, and how they can break down and how they can listen to us and how we think and then respond accordingly. I can't afford to think about anything other than being pure, perfect spirit, completely whole in 4D and in 5D with my galactic family and spend less time in 3D, um, because I feel such oppressive weight and conflict in 3D. And so I've had to confront that. I've had to confront the multi-dimensional aspects of my existence have been at the forefront of my thought. But what I do know is that I am the luckiest woman on the planet. I have so many friends who are true friends who would, I mean, that go back to I have friends that I'm still in touch with from when I was a little kid. Um, and that's because I understand the nature of the word friendship, that it can never be one sided, that it can, if you don't give it what it deserves and nurture it, um, it can leave you, it can fail you. Um, and I've always known that, I think, on some empirical level, just I think it's just ingrained in my consciousness. And so over the years of my life, as I've been lucky enough to meet a number of people, a great many people, coming and going through the days and weeks and years of my life, who are suddenly present and accounted for. Like, I'm here. I'm right here. Tell me what you need. Tell me what I can do. I don't care that I live 1,200 miles away. Do you need me to be there? I'll get in the car. Well, okay. And, they mean it because they've done it. I've had several visitations since my diagnosis, from people that have traveled a great distance to see me. Um, and gratitude doesn't even really seem to touch it, in terms of the depth of feeling and emotion that it inspires in me. And I very, very much want to come out on the other side of this healthy and whole and transformed and reborn. Because I think now that I've been wrong all along, that I've been wrong, that I do belong here, that this wasn't a mistake, that I am supposed to be on this planet at this time. And it took a lethal diagnosis. When your oncologist says inoperable and incurable, I'm like, I don't want to hear those words because they're not in my vocabulary. And I'm not. And today I went to the hospital. I was there for about 5 hours. I had to have an infusion and I had to have, a bunch of tests and stuff so that we could start on the next round 3 of the chemo. Which my body loves, by the way. I mean, it's happier on chemotherapy than it ever has been on any. It's like eating fistfuls of vitamins every day. It's bizarre, how well I'm reacting to it. No side effects whatsoever. In fact, in a lot of ways, I've never felt better. It's just bizarre. But a lot of that energy and a lot of of what's giving me the wherewithal. It doesn't just come, it doesn't just emanate from within me. Externally, I am surrounded by light and love, and the thing that's most amazing to me of all is oh good, Jeff's back. Is that a lot of the people that are helping me through this, who are healers, who are, Reiki masters, and who are, mediums, and who are, people that are helping guide me, and yes, I have my spirit guides, but I also have my people, my living, breathing, sweet, kind, gentle souls all through my life, every aspect of my life, that are here for me in a split second. And I don't ever ask anybody for anything. I try very hard not to do that. I've always felt like I was the giver, not the taker. And I've had to succumb to being willing to have that interaction. And so that said, Jeff is back and will be joining us now. And there he is. There he is. Did you fetch the child?
I fetched the child. She is home. Yep.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Did you tell her? Did you tell her what we talked about?
I did, actually. Yes, I did. She's excited. Yep.
Won't they be surprised?
Yes, they will. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Just for the viewers that didn't happen to see Soul School, Jeff and I were talking during the last hour about his daughter has a clique of friends that are like the popular girls, and they're big fans of me, which he didn't know until she mentioned it. And I said, okay, give her my phone number, and when she's with them, have her call me. and I'll talk to all of them. And
yeah, and I think I'll tell her, like, don't even lead with anything. Just like call you up like normal and just be like, hey, Andrea, it's me, Abigail. And just be like,
I will love it. Yeah. I'll blow their minds. It will be the best fun that I have that day, whatever day that happens.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
But I was talking before you got back. I was talking about, and I read the opening for the show about the intimacy that we attain, and how difficult it is for human beings to be isolated, that we need that interconnection with each other. And it was through me facing this diagnosis and all of that, I've always just assumed, my friendships are there. I'm good for them. They're good for me. We've got this symbiotic, lovely relationship with my friends, some of which go back to when I was in grade school. But that, coming into this field, a little bit more than like 10, 15 years ago, after writing the books and sharing our story, has changed everything for me. And people that are healers, and people who are Reiki masters, and people who are spiritualists, and you and Deb DeRoos and Greta and Erin and, oh my God, Jeff and Lynn Bowling. What would I do without them? I mean, it is, I'm so blessed and I'm so graced to have developed the friendships that I have, that in a lot of ways, not in a sardonic way, but in a way, just kind of I just took it for granted that these people were just going to be in my life, and how wonderful is that? And never ever thought that I would be in a position where I needed my friends to lift me up. I needed my friends to reassure me that it's no matter what, it's all going to be okay. And you play a pivotal role in my life. And we've only known each other, 3 or 4 years. And yet I have known you forever. And from as soon as we met, that was it. I mean, we decided we were going to do a show together. We decided we were going to work together. We decided we were going to travel together. We decided we were going to do all these things together because we imprinted on each other like magically. It was an immediate thing. And I have some friendships that literally have lifted me up out of the depths of despair. And you are one of them. And I told Bill, our producer, that right now at this stage for me, I don't want to do a world awakening with, you know, this author or that filmmaker, or, you know, I want to do a world awakening with my friends. I need that. I need that FaceTime that we have gratis through KGRA, through Bill, our producer, that we have this chance to interact this way. But what I love to have you in my arms. I wish that I could hug you. But I will see you in the spring because I'm focused forward. That is the intention that I'm putting out. Thoughts are things. I will see you in the spring in Michigan. I need to get back to Michigan.
Yeah.
It's in many ways, it's another home for me. And I need to be there with you and share with you and work with you and play with you and have all of that. But I wanted to take this opportunity tonight to thank you for your devotion to me, for your kindness and your generosity, your spirit, your loveliness, your light. I every week, we do the show. I tell people, be the light you seek, be the beacon of hope for someone else. Well, you are that for me. And that's why I wanted you to do the show with me tonight on the importance of friendship and developing a closeness and intimate connection with someone that is so pure and so perfect. And so when you meet someone who is truly trustworthy, you better latch on and hang on and then nurture that relationship the way we do. We speak in light language, we speak in numbers, we speak on the phone, we speak this way, we have our time together in person. Not enough, but we're working on that. But if you have just one person in your life that you have that kind of bond with, I would highly encourage anybody out there to nurture it. Don't ignore it. Don't take it for granted. Pick up the phone. Do what you need to do to make that connection. That advice, I think, saved lives during COVID, when the only way that you could show somebody how much you loved and appreciated them was to stay the hell away from them. Walk around in bubble wrap, 16 masks on. I mean, it was nuts. It was completely counterintuitive to how human beings interact and relate to each other. And it was a very, very difficult time. And there was a real breakdown in mental health, emotional health, psychic energy, spiritual. There was a huge number of people who were suddenly having paranormal experiences, that were having galactic interactions, that were having, because they were present, they were shaken and shocked into being present in the moment, not projecting out, well, I got to pick the kids up at 3 and dinner is at 5 and I got to somehow get to the grocery store in between here and there. And then, oh my God, and my boss wants this. And, and that's the kind of lives that we live. And we think of that as living, well, we're existing in our environment that we've created, but are we really living? Are we really connecting?
Yeah.
And I think that connecting with someone here on earth in such a significant, profound way is an expression of universal love and enlightenment and joy.
Mm.
That we are each a living, breathing expression of the consciousness
Yeah.
that we all share. And as I said last week, that's one of the reasons why I think empathy has been waning in our society, is because where you feel empathy, you also feel pain.
Mm.
And everybody feels like they've just been through enough pain. And so when you start to shut down that feeling that you have for another person, that moment that you put yourself in their shoes and feel their despair and feel their fear and feel their desire for something more in life, it's easy to retract from that, because not only does it remind you of a place that you've been in your life, that any one of us have been in our lives, and it's a sudden like, oh God, yeah, okay, I remember that. And so it's easy to shut that down and go, no, I just can't let myself feel that badly about anything right now. I just can't. And it's very easy to pull back into our safe little shell, like we're each a turtle crawling across this plane of action, and just like a cat retracts its claws, just go in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're going to do that, then get some good work done while you're going inside.
Yeah.
Find out who you are, how you interact, how you relate, what is of value to you, what matters to you.
Mm-hmm.
And interpersonal relationships, for me, are at the very top of the list. I don't care what the balance is in my bank account. I am filthy, stinking rich in friendship. And I am so blessed. And
Mm.
you are right there at the top
Yeah.
of the list of the people I love most deeply and that I trust completely.
Mm.
When you find that,
Mm.
hang on to it. So you
Mm.
can't get rid of me. I'm not going anywhere, Jeff Turner.
Oh, shucks. No, trust me, I don't want to, because everything you just said, I feel the same way. I feel the same way about you. And pardon me. Once upon a time, when I was probably, I don't know, 16 or 17, I grew up in the home of a pastor. My dad was a pastor. I was a pastor myself for 12 years, but I grew up in a pastor's home as well. And my dad growing up never had a lot of close friends, because one of the things he was counseled about early on was, be very careful when you're in this position, because people will try to get close to you because of your position, and will ingratiate themselves to you and become friends with you. And they're opportunists. They're trying to get,
Mhm.
and he did that to a certain extent. And then he was like, no, and he would let people in and he would get hurt. And we were at a new church. It was the second church he had pastored. And there was a split happening in the church. So some of the board members and deacons, who my dad had let himself get very close to, it
Mhm.
wasn't just a business relationship. It was, he let himself get very close to them, which is something he hadn't really done in the past. But he also never had a lot of friends, and these people had, betrayed him and spread all kinds of lies. And there was one particular individual who was kind of trying to like assert himself as the pastor and take the role over. And anyways, I heard my dad speaking on the phone to one of his actual friends, and my bedroom was right up against his office. And I heard him on the phone, very vulnerable, in tears. I'd never heard my dad like this before. And he just said, I guess I really can't. I just can't have friends and do this, and that was the what pain taught him, you know. And I took that on. myself early on when I started off in ministry as a pastor, as a young pastor, and I
Mhm.
kept people at a distance because I was afraid of getting hurt like that.
Yeah.
And like I said, I saw the people who came into my father's life who, you don't want to paint people with the brush of like an opportunist, but there are a lot of people out there who are self-seeking. There are, and you got to know that. And I was like, man, I don't want to get hurt like that. I don't want to get crushed the way that I saw my dad get crushed. And I was already an introvert to begin with,
Hmm.
but that kind of put a little bow on my introversion,
Sure.
to where I kind of went into my little shell, as it were, and I just kind of protected myself. I'm just my family, and that's it.
Mhm.
And it's just not living to be like that, though. It's just not living. And because we in the West especially, we have this myth of the individual, and we're all rugged individualists, and we're going to pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, and we're self-made men and women. And like, hey, to a certain extent, there is some health to thinking like that when you're too collectively focused,
Yeah.
because the individual, the collective is a reflection of the individual. So the health of the individual affects the health of the collective, obviously. But we
Obviously.
can we can sometimes get so focused on the individual aspect of who we are as individuals, we forget the fact that we're actually interdividual. And the philosophy of Rene Girard in mimetic theory especially shatters the myth of individualism and
Hmm.
reveals just how interdividual we are as a species, that we are not ourselves without each other. We're really just not. We think we're ourselves when we're by ourselves. I
Right.
am not myself by myself. I am myself when I am connected to those I love and who I know the universe God has brought into my life. That
Mhm.
is when I am truly myself.
Mhm. And your best self. I know, me too.
Absolutely. And I am so the kind of person who can cloister myself away, and treat my home as though it's a little monastery and get lost in my books. And that's just me.
Yeah,
And I,
well, that's me too, but
yeah.
but the door is always open.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. No. And part of, Jung's actually the one who coined the term introvert and extrovert. And when you
Yeah.
look at the way he talks about it, somebody like myself who is blessed or afflicted with the curse of introversion, however one looks at it, one of the things I do especially, pardon me, is that I can carry on a relationship with someone in my head that I'm
Mhm.
not carrying out physically. And by that I just simply mean I stay connected to them here. I
Yeah.
love them. I feel connected to them through memories. My constant like thoughts and intentions and prayers, whatever, towards them keep me feeling a sense of connection to them. But then I don't realize, oh, a year went by and I haven't even talked to them. You know what I mean? But in my mind, I still feel connected, but that's not the same as actually connecting with them, right? And so the introvert, that's something we have to be careful of, is we can actually live in relationship with people mentally that we're not actually in. We're in a relationship with an idea of a person, right? But there's a difference between that, because if I'm just in relationship with an idea of a person, the truth is I'm in a relationship with my own mind in some sense. It's a reflection of that. It's an image of that person I hold in here, but it's really myself. And the thing is, if I'm only in a relationship with myself, there isn't that blessed friction that comes from relating to people. You know what I mean? Where you're changed by encountering something other than you. And that's something like I realize I have to be very conscious, not with everybody, but like I have to be very conscious about not getting stuck there, because it's like even I, my wife often has to be like, "When's the last time you texted your mom?" I love my mom, but I'm like, I don't know. But it isn't that it felt disconnected at all. It's
Right.
just like,
And you're not taking the relationship for granted.
no, because in
It's
my mind,
it's so active in you. I
yeah.
know.
And then other people are
Months can
totally,
go by,
yeah. And
that
other
I
people are totally different, and they're very social, but they might not feel the same kind of like internal connection. It's more of a social connection, right? So
Mhm.
those are things we have to be careful of. But that for me, but when I interact with someone, I guess all that to say, when I do interact with someone like physically in person, face to face, as opposed to just here, I'm like, Oh, there it is.
Get it?
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because all of a sudden I'm myself fully, because I'm not an individual. I'm interdividual. And when I link up with that part of myself that is that other person, as opposed to just the image of that person that lives in my head, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm a whole person again. And I think that's really it. And like you said, I think that is kind of like a map of the greater reality, the web of reality that we are, as above, so belowing in
Mhm.
how we live every day. I think that is what, this is just my theory, but I think that is what God, whatever we want to call it, source, I think that's what it looks like. I think we have this collective mind that we lasso in consonants and vowels and hog tie and call God. Okay, well, whatever that is, let it be free. I think it's something like this. It is one mind, it is one consciousness. But this one mind and this one consciousness begins to disassociate in some way in
Mhm.
order to know itself, right?
Mhm.
And so, like, if someone has dissociative identity disorder, the mind is so disassociated that
It fractures.
it
Yeah.
fractures, and there's different individuals. And someone like Bernardo Kastrup
Mhm.
um, talks about us, you know, the collective universal mind that we're all part of is disassociated into all of our individual lives. And so me looking around this room and seeing my collection of Batman memorabilia over here, my wife's college textbooks and stuff over here, my whatever, like that's what disassociation looks like for me, right? That's what this little sliver of the disassociated universal mind, that's how it manifests. Okay, well, whatever, but I think it's something like that. The mind that is God knows itself by disassociating in some way. Now, in DID, those identities are called alters, ALTERS, like alternate
Right.
personalities or whatever.
Yeah.
I like to use the illustration of altars in that spelling, and altars with an ALTARS, is in holy places
Is in a
or
holy place.
places, yeah, like where
Sacred
people meet
space.
God. So I
Yeah.
think of it like that the divine mind that is God, it's everything, right? And so when something is everything, well, it can be hard to know, not because it's not present, but because it's ubiquitous. It's kind of
Mhm.
like if you walk out in the morning and you see dandelions everywhere. Well, somebody goes and they get the weed whacker or the weed killer. It's beautiful though, really, but because it's everywhere, we don't see its beauty. We lose it because of its ubiquity. Meanwhile, the rose, who must be catered to like a starlet or a prima donna, we cherish because of its rarity, right?
Yeah.
So rarity sometimes is what breeds, recognition. So the divine mind is everywhere. God is everywhere. It's everything. But then it begins to disassociate and begins to create altars. And by altars, I mean these places of encounter where people begin to encounter God. And so there's these sacred places throughout human history where people encounter God. And some call it Yahweh, some call it Krishna, some call it a psilocybin mushroom trip in the back of the desert. Some call it this, that, or the other. Some
Yeah.
some see lights in the sky, so, whatever. But there's these altars that begin to emerge, and it's all the same divine mind knowing itself through disassociation. But then you get to the point where it's so disassociated, you lose track of the fact that it's one thing.
Mhm.
And so then those altars begin to interact with one another,
Mhm.
and like beads of mercury begin to become one again. But they become one again, they become one on the other side of knowing that they can be disassociated as well. And it's like, I don't know, that's a long way of saying I think friendship in the natural, that is to say, just you and I interacting, us interacting with people in chat, us interacting with people at the grocery store, or our family and our friends, that we are, as I said, as above, so belowing, as a verb, we are enacting here in the below what is always a reality in the above. We are on earthing as it is in heavening. We are enacting the bigger picture in the here and now when we do that. And it's turtles all the way down. Reality is fractal. That's what it looks like. Where when we do that, it feels the way it feels because we are making God, quote unquote, present through the action of relating to one another, because that's what God is. God is disassociated divine mind coming to know itself and remembering that it's God. And when you and I do that, even every time, that's why I leave these conversations every Friday being like, man, I feel like I just went to church and got saved all over again. Or you know what I mean? Like,
I
it's
do too. No,
like,
I swear to God, I do too. And you don't know, I don't know how many messages you get after we do a show,
mm-hmm.
but I'm usually up till 1 o'clock in the morning answering.
Yeah.
Just people who have my number, just people that are friends that are watching the show, that are
Yeah.
reacting to it. And I very often send you their letters or their comments or stuff, because it, in a strange way. And I mean, we're using cyberspace to do it,
Yeah.
but in a strange, um, off-world way. We're using technology to connect with each other
Mm-hmm.
in a beautiful way, and absolutely, I get to see you. I
Mm-hmm.
get to hear your voice. I see you in real time. I know Bill's on the other side of a screen. I know that there are people in the chat room, and that our friends have gathered to spend part of their Friday evening with us.
Yeah.
And there is a sense of community and camaraderie.
Mm.
And if you had asked me 50 years ago, would I be sitting in front of a thing called a computer, talking to my friends around the world and feeling that sense of closeness and intimacy and a cherishing of each other through a screen on a machine that didn't exist yet? I would have told you, what planet are you from?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't exist here.
Right.
And now it does. And interestingly, it's the technology that we've developed that, in a way, saved us
Mm-hmm.
during COVID, when we
Yes.
were afraid to go over to our neighbor's house, when we were afraid to take the dog for a walk because we might run into somebody that's carrying the virus, and just passing them on the sidewalk could be a death sentence.
Yes.
I mean, that was a shocking metamorphosis that we as a global society endured simultaneously.
Yeah.
And I think that it did fracture a lot of people psychologically,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, even spiritually. It also grounded a lot of people and made them completely rethink their own existence
Yeah.
and that of their loved ones. And the
Mm-hmm.
pull on us, on our natural, essential empathy,
Yeah.
part of what makes us human, was so painful that we began to pull away from it and not allow ourselves to feel for others, which is a challenge,
Mm-hmm.
because that's such an enormous part of real friendship.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you and I uh, communicate with each other about our personal lives and about our family lives, and there's nothing hidden, there's nothing left unexpressed.
Mm-hmm.
And to have that with another human being, I think is it's absolutely pivotal
Oh,
to
yeah.
our own spiritual growth and progression, and having friends that you can rely on, that will be there for you no matter what.
Yes.
Who, the kind that, if you're an axe murderer, they'll help you bury the body.
Yeah.
Okay. That kind of unconditional, if you did it for a good reason. I'm all in, I mean,
no questions asked. If
no
you did
questions asked. Did you bring another shovel?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, exactly. It is, it has a deeper meaning for me now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't just assume that I've got these relationships that I never really ask anything of. I just try to infuse my own nurturing and devotional self into.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I needed them the most, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been an absolutely, it's been a revelation. It's been a revelation to me in just these few months. And, I thought I had a really good grasp on this, prior to my diagnosis. But that one moment sitting in a doctor's office changed everything.
Mm.
And suddenly I realized how much I need my friends,
Mm.
how much I need the love and the kindness and the support, at a time when I felt as vulnerable as I have ever felt in my entire life.
Mm.
And this massive void was created, and you hopped right in to fill it.
Mm.
You were one of the first people, aside from my immediate family, that I shared this news with.
Mm.
And then you, and then, Deb and Greta and Lenny and Jeff and
Mm.
Aaron, my circle, my sisters.
Mm.
They are my sisters and my star brother.
Well,
And it's made all the difference, I guess,
mm.
is what I have to say. It has
Mm.
made all the difference, and I am eternally grateful to you.
Mm. Hey, I don't know what to say to that. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to be a part of your life. And I'm not just grateful, I'm honored.
Oh,
I'm
honey.
honored. I'm deeply, deeply honored. And if my presence in anyone's life leaves them feeling better than they felt before I was present, then I've done everything that I've come here to do in one sense. And then feeling is 100% mutual, 100% mutual. And there's, like you said, when you find, I don't have a lot of, I have a lot of friends, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Close friends that I kind of talk to on the daily. It's a thinner crowd. And I'm sure, it's a thinner herd.
Yeah.
And so when I find people like that, as you said, I cherish it, because I've had my fair share of people that I thought were friends and it ended up,
I think we all have.
and then that someone like me, that tends to spook me, and I want to run for the hills. But like I said, which was kind of what I was trying to say earlier, but I've learned that when I do that, I become less and less and less of myself.
Yeah.
And it's only when I open myself back up to the possibility of my, let's say, my completion lying in the voice or the face or conversation with another, that I become myself. And I'm like, oh, that's why
Whole.
that's why I do this. Yeah. And it's like, even over all of COVID, through the whole thing, it's like, my biggest fear when COVID started was, knowing about things like the Stanford prison experiment and things like that, which I'm sure you're familiar with. If you want to read the book, The Lucifer Effect, which really teases out all of that. But in the Stanford prison experiment, basically, college students were basically paid to do this social experiment in which some pretended to be prisoners, some pretended to be guards. The prison guards always wore like big mirror sunglasses. The prisoners were put in uniforms, and they were told, just long story short, treat each other like they're prisoners, like your guards. And they went to incredible extremes, really enacting these roles. And part of the psychology behind it was, the glasses, you couldn't see the eyes, the
Right.
uniforms put them in a certain, well, you're prisoners, it just kind of otherized them. When we went into it, I was very fearful, because it was like, even with everyone wearing a mask, it was necessary, but like, you can't see the face, you know what I mean? You can't
Yep.
see the countenance. You can't, you're not seeing the micro expressions of the people that you are interacting with. And then even then, you're not interacting with anyone. And then when you are, you're not seeing them as people. You're seeing them as potential threats whose micro expressions and humanity you can't even see. And it was like, but in the midst of that, there arose this new potential, which is what we're doing now. And, you were talking a couple of weeks ago about social media, TikTok in particular, how studies are showing that it increases anxiety and lessens empathy. And it's like, that was the double-edged sword of the technology that emerged during that season. And just like religion, like the word religion means to bind. And so religion can either bind you, like entrap you, or it can bind together the parts of you that are broken. And so it's always a double-edged sword. Technology is the same way. And
Yeah.
so what I feared at the beginning was that it would just lead to this isolation and otherization and us against them and no longer seeing each other's humanity. And that certainly did happen.
Mm-hmm.
But what I personally also experienced through it all was this renewed connection with people whom I would have never connected with in a million years. If it weren't for that season, you and I probably would have never connected.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I guarantee it.
That alone tells
Mhm.
me that it was imperative that it happen,
Yes.
because that set of circumstances had to occur precisely the way that it did
Mhm.
for us to come together and
Yes.
then to be there for each other through some very challenging times.
Yeah.
And some very intensely interpersonal conversations
Yes.
that have altered both of us, altered
Absolutely.
both of us.
Yep.
And as we share this sacred space. And
Mm.
so I want to tonight, as we close, I want to encourage everyone to take a few moments, reach out to someone who you know would love to hear from you, and just reach out to them, pick up the phone, or maybe even send them a card, or maybe drop by for coffee. Just reconnect, regenerate, like the synapses in the brain that kind of go to sleep, and you have to spark them up so that get the coffee going. Let's go.
Yeah.
And all of that chemical reaction that occurs in our brains. We are better when we are together. We
Yes.
are our best selves when we're with people that we love, who get us, who understand us, who cherish us, who might not even agree with us, but love us.
Yes.
And let's focus on not the individual, but the us, the we, the
Mhm.
grand we are all in this together.
Mm.
So go in those times and rekindle the fire, light the lantern,
Yeah.
and then go out into the world and be that beacon of hope. Be the change you wish to see in the world, and always be the light you seek. I love you, Jeff Turner.
I love you too.
Love you. Thank you all for joining us tonight.